Area is primarily used to calculate the regions of two-dimensional shapes. That is why when you are asked to solve what the area is, your answer is always to the power of 2, or in other words, squared. Just like how when you are asked to calculate the volume of three-dimensional figures, your answer is always to the power of 3. In this video I'm gonna be going over how you can solve the area of all the most common 2D geometrical figures, and all the area formulas used for the specific figure. First, let's start with how you calculate the area of a square. The formula to calculate the area of a square is the base times height. And because the base and height are the same in a square, you can say that the formula is side times side. This square has a side length of 4 centimeters, which means that all sides are 4 centimeters. So what you do is take 4 times 4, which is 16. And the answer is 16 square centimeters. Let me try to visualize the process for you, so you know why we take the side times side. Look at the length of the square here. It is 4 centimeters. And the width of the square is of course also 4 centimeters. And we are calculating the area of this entire region. So we are basically taking this entire side section and extending it upwards to 4 centimeters, which makes it 4 times 4. Hopefully you can now see why the formula is side multiplied by side. Calculating the area of a rectangle relies on almost exactly the same formula, only that in a rectangle all the sides are not equal. But the formula is still base times height, just not side times side. Meaning that if we have this rectangle which has the width of 6 centimeters and the length of 8 centimeters, you figure out the area by taking 6 times 8, which is 48. And so the answer to the question is 48 square centimeters. Now let's talk about the parallelogram. You might think that this figure has a complicated formula to solve it. But it actually is the same as a rectangle, with the formula being the base times height. And you might wonder how the formula can be that simple. Well, if we look at the parallelogram, we can see that this section is what the left side section is missing. So if we move the right side section over to the left side, you can see that it becomes a normal rectangle. And that is why the formula is as simple as the base times height. But anyways, if we use this formula, you take 7 times 5, which makes the answer 35 square centimeters. What about the triangle? How can we figure out its area? Well, the formula is the base times height, only that you divide it by 2. This formula goes for any triangle. Let me try to visualize why we have this formula. If we have this equilateral triangle with a side length of 8 centimeters, and we also have this square which has the side length of 8 centimeters, then we make an outline on what the triangle is missing to be exactly the same as the square. You can see that we are missing this entire section. And if we put that section together in the form of a triangle, it is exactly as big as the original triangle. And if a triangle and a square have the exact same base and height, the triangle is always going to be half as big as the square. That is why the formula for a triangle is the same as a square, only that you divide it by 2. Meaning that if we follow this formula, you take 8 times 8 divided by 2, which makes the answer 32 square centimeters. The area of a circle has a bit more complicated formula. It is pi times the radius squared, or pi times the diameter squared divided by 4. Okay, so the radius of a circle is the distance from its center to any point of its circumference. The diameter of a circle is the distance across the circle passing through its center, and it is basically twice the radius. Hopefully you also know that pi is just another word for 3.14. So let's say we have a circle with a radius of 3 centimeters. If we use the first formula, the calculation becomes 3.14 times 3 squared, which is 28.26. If we instead calculated the area through the diameter, we can use the second formula, which is 3.14 times 6 squared divided by 4, which results in the same answer. The formula for the area of a circle is hard to visualize, so I recommend you just try to remember the formula. The trapezoid is also a bit complicated, but I think that the best way to understand it is to break down the trapezoid into much simpler 2D shapes. Here we have a trapezoid, and the formula to a trapezoid is the first base plus the second base times the height divided by 2. This might sound complicated, but let's break down the trapezoid into a rectangle and 2 triangles. And now it is much simpler to understand, since we know how to solve the area of rectangles and triangles. So let's first take the area formula used for the trapezoid. So we have 9 plus 5 times 6 divided by 2, which is 42. Then if we look at my breakdown of the trapezoid, we have this triangle, which you can take 2 times 6 divided by 2, which is 6. And since the other triangle is exactly the same, it is also 6 square centimeters. Then calculate the area of the rectangle, which is 5 times 6, which becomes 30. Add everything together and you get 42, which is also what we got when we used the first formula. Now of course the trapezoid formula is much faster and better, but I just wanted to do a breakdown of the shape, to make you understand the calculation of its area. The last 2D shape I am gonna go over is the rhombus. A rhombus is quite similar to a square, which you can probably see. But there actually are 2 different ways you could solve a rhombus area, depending on what information you have. If you have the base length and height of the rhombus, you can just take side times side, because all sides in a rhombus are equal. Now let's go over how you can solve the area of a rhombus with the second piece of information, which is when you have the length of the 2 diagonals. All you need to do to figure out the area is to multiply both the diagonals and then divide it by 2. This formula is expressed as A equals D1 times D2 divided by 2. So let's say we have a rhombus which has diagonal 1 as 4 centimeters and the diagonal 2 as 7 centimeters. All we need to do is take 4 by 7 and divide it by 2. Meaning that the area is 14 square centimeters. Really hope this video helped you. Be sure to like, subscribe and comment something.